Hey everybody, and welcome to Talk Daily. I'm your host Eddie, and today we're gonna be talking. It's gonna be a little bit um, kind of a like knowledge session about some of the technology that goes into cars that allows them to handle well. And naturally, of course, I start with a Mazda Miata because to me is this is the car that you should buy if you don't know how to drive, or you want to learn how to drive, or you think you know how to drive. Trust me, get a Miata, take it to the track, and we'll teach you a lot about your driving, and you don't have to do anything to it, just drive it. Anyway, the point is, Mazda finally is starting to add some electronic assistant to help you with your driving. I'm personally not a big fan of any of these things. I usually just turn them off when you go to the track, but regardless, it's there. So they have something called kinematic posture control. What is kinematic posture control? I just call it like, remember when you're studying physics and studying math, and I usually like to describe things as blah. I don't really need to, it's a function, right? It's a function. It's a title. So just call this x, whatever. It doesn't matter. What it is basically brakes being applied to each corner of the wheel. So it's kind of like traction control, but it's not. Instead of those brakes being applied to stabilize the vehicle in case of a skid instead of sliding, this is designed to keep the car from not rolling too much. Okay? I personally don't like it because, as with traction control and everything else, basically it wears out your brake pads. I mean, if you keep using it, eventually your brake pads have this weird wearing. It wears out. But again, I'm talking about when you're at the track. That's why we turn these things off. Okay? But for the road, I'm pretty sure, again, it's an aid that gives you more control, more controllability, hence makes it more safer. So I'm always okay with that. Anyway, so that's just one thing Mazda's doing. But don't forget, all the cars, for example, this big SUV, they have active anti-roll bar, okay? Air springs, adaptive dampener, four-wheel steering, torque vectoring differential, electronic variable power steering, throttle-by-wire, brake-by-wire, all-wheel drive, torque split. Anyway, I don't want to keep reading these things. Then you're thinking to yourself, okay, so what's the point? The point is all these things are in this big vehicle so they can handle well. Because in reality, this is how a car should handle well. Independent suspension, lightweight, rear front engine rear wheel drive, 50-50 weight distribution, or mid-engine, and off you go. But this configuration is not everybody's cup of tea. I mean, obviously, it's not a family car. You can put more than two people in here, etc. So anyway, I understand why you have the big SUVs. I understand why you have the technology, but I just want to kind of explain to you what Miata's doing with kinematic posture control is basically counteracting the fact they do not have active anti-roll bars. That's basically what it is. When you buy Miata, like for example, older Miata, okay, the first generation, the 1.8 liter, not the 1.6, for the one after it. What is it, like the from 1994 and up, from 1994 to 1997, the NA. Your sway bars usually they just have one setting. If you don't know what it is, I'm gonna use an example. Again, I'm not sponsored by them. I love this company, but I'm not sponsored by them. I'm just letting you know. See the sway bar, for example, has three settings. Okay, that's the rear sway bar, that's the front sway bar because it's fatter. Okay, because you have the engine, it has a lot more weight on the front, a lot more body rolling. Anyways, and the front usually experiences the most amount of body roll because when you're turning, all the weight goes there. So that's why it's thicker. And you see the setting? Those holes are designed where you could change your end links on your control arm, and you can basically adjust it whether you want to be in the first hole or the second hole. It just depends on if you want it to be stiffer. The closer you are to the sway bar, the more resistant. The further you are, the more leverage you have. Then you get more of that spring reaction. You get more leeway. You get more softer. Those big SUVs, they basically, if they put a very fat sway bar on that SUV, the ride will be very uncomfortable because nothing will move. The suspension really barely is not pliable. Okay, and if you're spending $250,000, $280,000 on an SUV, you do not want it to be uncomfortable. So what they did is they did active anti-roll bar. And if you don't know what that is, I'll show you my little drawing of it. Okay, so here's the whiteboard, right? I'm using what is it, Paint, Microsoft Paint. I'm gonna draw to you a little bit what I'm talking about. A conventional vehicle has, I'm gonna use the Miata for example, right? That's the control arm. Okay, that's the lower control arm. I'm gonna draw it like this as a control arm, right? And your wheel is here. I'm gonna draw everything like you're looking down at it, okay? And that's the wheel. That's the thread of the wheel. Big wheel, big fat wheel. Okay. And that's the lower control. Remember, that's two control arms, okay? So, because obviously one control arm would be very flimsy, right? So you have two of them. One on the top and one on the bottom. So that's two control arms. That's the point of the joint. They joint to the chassis, okay? And here's the hub. You would have your brake, whatnot. I'm just going to make it into dark black. That's irrelevant. And here you have your coilover, for example. Your spring will be here. And then your shock. Let's make this in yellow to make it look pretty. And it's bolted somewhere on your suspension right here, okay? And then you have a sway bar. And the sway bar will be also connected somewhere here. And goes all the way to the opposite side of the suspension, okay? So as you sway bar, as this vehicle, let's draw force in red. If this goes up, this sway bar on the other side will push down. So everything goes up, this will push down. Okay? And that's the roll. Your vehicle, what you're sitting in, the tub that you're sitting in is on top here. So this will be your car here. This is the mass, that's the suspension that's controlling. And that's where the driver will be sitting, for example. Here you go. He's smiling. Yay. That's the driver, and he's kind of chubby a little bit, but that's okay. And it has curly hair. So that's you sitting on top, and this is the vehicle that you have, okay? And then you can see that the suspension, the way it works, so it just counteracts. One side gets pushed, the other side pushes in the opposite direction. And that's what this swayboard is doing. This pushes up, you're taking a turn. Let's say, like in that picture, the Miata is taking a sharp turn, so there's a force pushing upward on the swayboard. It's pushing up, and this will be pushing down. Okay, so that's how like a conventional suspension would look like. But when you have anti-active sway bar, there's no metal rod right there, okay? So what you have is we're going to draw another control arm, okay? And here's the wheel. Again, a big fat tire. And I don't need to like Yokohama Advance or something. And this is control arm, and there's going to be another control arm, okay? Cool. And then you have your spring. Remember, this is going to be air spring. So the modern cars, they have something like a pocket here, which is basically, it's air, electronic controlled air suspension, okay? And then you have your shock. It's still kind of the same, okay? But this is full of air, so we're going to draw air in blue. So this is air in here. And I'll put air. I, give me I. Air. It's air in here, okay? And it's all controlled electronically. And your sway bar, there's no sway bar. There's basically a motor in here and a plunger, and it's connected electrically to another one, the other side of the vehicle, right? So it'll be another motor with a plunger. And what it does, it also pushes the control arm. I'm making sure that I'm not moving outside the view that you guys can see. So what happens is when this wants to push down, this motor can do whatever it wants. It can push down, it can push up, it does whatever it wants to do. It's not limited to, okay, seesaw. This is push it, you know, this is basically a seesaw. You go up, I go down. You go down, I go up. This one, no, it can do whatever it wants. Meaning that the contact patch, which is ultimately the whole purpose of the whole thing, this is the contact patch right here, where the tire is touching the ground, is maximized. It's no longer force that, you know, okay, this being pushed, the contact patch is big, on the other side will be smaller. Here will be convenient, on both sides will be the same, almost. It's basically up to the programming, because even the air suspension is electronically controlled. You could put less air, more air, less air. This could get larger, it can get smaller. Basically, your dampening could be constantly controlled. Constantly, instantly variable. This one, it's not. You could feel it. It's mechanical. It's repetitive. It's the same motion over and over, because it's a spring being compressed. It's gonna always yield the rate, the delta here, the rate of change on the spring is consistent. It's not gonna change. You know, it's the same spring. I mean, heat might be somewhat of a factor. The shock fatigue will be a factor eventually, but all that can be measured. All that is actually measured. It doesn't change. You know, that's why shocks have external reservoir. For this shock might have like a little external reservoir of fluid in here to help the shock body. But I mean, that's like, you know, we'll go into race application with and whatnot. But this sway bar, it's finite. You have to stop the vehicle, unbolt it, and change basically see the holes in it. There'll be like, come on, there'll be like little holes in there where you could where the sway bar is mounted to the suspension, and it shows me a little X. Anyway, so maybe it kind of gives you like a little idea of the complexity that you see in modern vehicles. Okay, so when you are looking at this car, for example, it has a lot of things going on to it. You can go to like, company like Fly Me Out and say, oh, can I please change the sway bar and can I get this spring? No, you can't. Not because they can't make it. Oh, sure they can make it. Who's gonna sit there and program it for you? Because the active sway bar, the one I just showed you, that works with the air suspension and adaptive dampener is the shock I showed you. Okay, the air spring is that little bag that I showed. That's the air spring, and adaptive dampener is the shock that also controlled by. Again, everything is controlled electric. Basically, some metal shavings in there, and there's an electrical current that goes in, and it makes it basically more resistance, less resistance. This is a very big subject. I'm basically just summarizing it for you very, very quickly, but to understand the technology that goes in these cars. So when you're on the freeway and you're driving kind of, I don't know, you're going speed limit, and you see this big SUV going maybe faster than you and going through lanes, and you're looking at it like, what? No, I'm going to follow it. And you're in a nice little Honda Accord that has basically suspension that's, worse than this. Your contact patch is this thing right here. That's what the whole point of this contact patch. Yours is not going to be consistent, where theirs always going to be consistent, because yours, I wish I was able to draw it on this side, because basically if this contact patch gets big, the other side gets basically smaller. That's why you see cars go tripod mode. Okay, you do your best to try to make it, but mechanical cars like this, you're limited because you're just allowing the force of physics to take its course, and you're unable to manipulate that force. Where in this case, they are electronically able to. That electric motor doesn't care how many G's it's receiving. It just, you can send another signal to the other electric motor saying push down, and that's what drive-by-wire is. I mean, this is the technology. Basically, think about it as like a Messerschmitt. You fly a Messerschmitt, right? All the controls are hydraulic, and you have hydraulics, and you have what else? And you have basically cables and whatnot, right? And now you move into this era which is done by flying by wire. This is a 777 over here. This is a 777. You just, and that, yeah, you have a throttle, but you don't think that throttle is physically connected to like hydraulic line and you pushing it. Dude, it's electronic, okay? So that's basically what we're looking at. Everything is servos, basically. Think about it, servos. So that's how these cars are able to drive very, very well. So to me, it's amazing, but in a way, it's sad because I like to modify things, but with these modern cars, I don't know, man. I guess you can get wheels. Get different stickers, put some anime stickers on this thing, and put some wings. Because really, you messing by this, who's gonna sit there and like reprogram your torque vectoring differential, electric variable power steering, throttle? I can see the throttle by wire. A lot of people do that to give you more response. Like if you have a car that, for example, my Honda, right? My Honda, the K series engine. I give the gas. It's like, it's like you're stepping on a marshmallow. You could do it where it'd be instantaneous. Okay, that's okay because there's not much complex other things going on in it. Okay, but that stuff just basically gets more and more and more complicated. So I just want to kind of give you guys a heads up here, little insight if you were not aware of the sheer complexity you get with these with these cars, and amount of appreciation. Next time when you go to auto show and you see these vehicles and you think to yourself, oh, I like the way it looks. Well, no, underneath it, all those engineers and programmers and this huge smart people, a huge group of them sitting down and making this, like, you can't even comprehend it anymore. It's literally, each one of these things is a field of its own. Like all-wheel drive torque split, someone can get the PhD just literally coming up with algorithm to make this work. So I think it's amazing. I think it's awesome, and I'll try to do more videos explaining these things more and more in depth more in depth. And anyway, so I'll end this video right here. How long we've been talking for quite some time. As always, thank you everyone for watching, and as always, subscribe and let me know what you think. And if you have one of these vehicles, I hope this video kind of gives you more of a insight to the amount of love these companies put in these vehicles now. I think it's amazing. Anyway, as always, thank you for watching and take care, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.